Are you absolutely certain they said that? Admiral Vexthor's eye stalks quivered with what could only be described as the Zalaxian equivalent of abject horror. Yes, sir. The exact transmission was, touch our colony again and we'll rip your tentacles off and use them as jump ropes. The human ambassador then terminated the communication. Lieutenant Krill's exoskeleton clicked nervously as he shifted his weight from one spindly leg to the other. The Grand Council chamber of the galactic hegemony fell into stunned silence. The 7 representatives of the most powerful species in the known universe exchanged worried glances, or whatever passed for glances among species that communicated primarily through pheromones or telepathy. Counselor Zix of the Arcturian Dominion, a being composed mostly of crystalline structures that refracted the dim blue light of the chamber in hypnotic patterns, finally broke the silence. Perhaps this is a translation error? Humans cannot possibly be this brazen? No translation error, rumbled Counselor Grath, the massive rock-like Petrosian representative. My species has been studying human languages for the past solar cycle. They are remarkably direct, also fond of what they call hyperbole, though in this case, I believe they mean it quite literally. Admiral Vexthor's tentacles coiled tightly against his torso. The Zalaxian Empire has conquered 3,000 star systems in the last millennium. No species has ever dared to speak to us with such attitude, offered Krill. Insolence! Vexthor thundered, slamming a tentacle against the marble-like surface of the council table. And over what? A simple planetary acquisition in their outer territories? It's barely habitable by their standards. Actually, sir, Krill ventured, his voice barely above a whisper. The humans appear to have formed an emotional attachment to what they call New Montana. They claim to enjoy the, fishing. Fishing! Screeched Counselor Phi Epsilon, the insectoid representative of the Hive Collective. They would risk interstellar war over the recreational pursuit of aquatic creatures? It's more complicated than that, offered Grath, his gravelly voice resonating through the chamber. Humans display territorial behaviors unlike any species we've encountered. They don't just claim planets for resources, they love them. A significant one, I would presume, said Counselor Zix, crystal facets glimmering thoughtfully. Which is why it is so puzzling that they have survived this long. The holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing the unmistakable blue-green marble of Earth. Their homeworld is unremarkable, noted Phi Epsilon. Class M planet, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, mostly water. Nothing that would suggest they should be particularly formidable. Grath made a sound that might have been a laugh if Petrosians were capable of humor. That is where you are mistaken, Counselor. The humans are from what they themselves classify as a death world. Preposterous, scoffed Vexthor. No intelligent life evolves on death worlds. The environmental pressures are too extreme. And yet, Grath continued, their planet experiences catastrophic weather events, tectonic instability, regular asteroidal bombardment, constantly shifting climate patterns, and hosts over 8 million species, many of which have evolved specifically to kill humans. The council members shifted uncomfortably. And yet they survived, mused Zix. Not just survived, corrected Grath. They dominate. Their history is an unbroken chain of one species. Them, systematically conquering every environmental challenge their planet could produce. They have outlasted ice ages, supervolcanoes, plagues, and their own nuclear weapons. Lieutenant Krill cleared his throat, or whatever passed for a throat in Zalaxian physiology. There's more, sir. Our intelligence indicates that humans, well, they actually enjoy confronting danger. They climb mountains because, and I quote, they're there. They jump out of perfectly functional aircraft for recreation. Some even chase storms that can level their dwellings. Admiral Vexthor's color shifted from its usual imperious purple to a sickly mauve. Are you suggesting these creatures are insane? By our standards? Absolutely, Krill confirmed. But it's worse than that, sir. They're also remarkably adaptive. Their short lifespans have accelerated their evolution and technological development. They went from atmospheric flight to moon landing in less than one of their centuries. Counselor Phi Epsilon's mandibles clicked rapidly, the insectoid equivalent of nervous fidgeting. The question before this council is simple. Do we return their colony world and apologize? Or do we teach these upstart mammals the consequences of threatening the hegemony? Vexthor's tentacles twisted into what xenobiologists would later identify as the Zalaxian expression for righteous indignation. The Zolaxian Empire does not apologize. We have a reputation to maintain. If we back down to these primates, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge our supremacy. Grath's rocky exterior rumbled as he shifted in his seat. Admiral, with all due respect, you should review the classified intelligence on human warfare before making your decision. What could be so impressive about primitive beings who have barely established a presence beyond their own star system? Demanded Vex Thor. The chamber darkened as Grath activated his personal data terminal. A series of images flickered across the holographic display, scenes of human conflicts through the ages. These creatures, Grath explained, invented over 100 ways to kill each other before they discovered electricity. Their history is essentially one long war interrupted by brief periods of preparing for the next war. They have turned their most advanced scientific discoveries, medicine, nuclear energy, even their planetary communications network, into weapons. The images shifted to show humans in various environments: desert, Arctic, jungle, urban ruins. They can fight anywhere, Grath continued. They have soldiers specially trained for every conceivable environment. Some can survive for weeks with minimal supplies. Others can eliminate targets from distances their prey can't even see. They call these individuals snipers, and they are terrifyingly patient. But surely their technology is no match for our quantum weaponry and faster-than-light capabilities, protested Phi Epsilon. Krill cleared his throat again. That's just it, Counselor. Humans don't fight conventionally. When faced with a technologically superior adversary, they adapt. Our simulations suggest they would resort to guerrilla tactics, sabotage, even suicide attacks if necessary. Suicide attacks? Admiral Vex Thor's eye stalks went rigid with shock. They would sacrifice themselves willingly? They have entire historical epics glorifying such behavior, confirmed Grath. They call them last stands, situations where warriors fought to the death against impossible odds to protect their territory or ideals. The council chamber grew uncomfortably quiet as the implications sank in. There's one more thing, Krill added hesitantly. The humans have a saying that our cultural analysts find particularly troubling. When faced with overwhelming opposition, they don't surrender. Instead, they say, "Hold my beer." Beer? questioned Zix. A mild poison they consume for pleasure, explained Grath. The phrase essentially means, "Watch me do something so reckless and dangerous that you won't believe it's possible." Admiral Vex Thor's color had now faded to an unhealthy gray. Are you suggesting that if we press this conflict, they will likely respond with disproportionate and creative violence? Yes, confirmed Grath. Their historical records are filled with examples of technologically inferior human forces defeating superior adversaries through sheer determination and unconventional tactics. The Admiral's tentacles drooped noticeably. Then what do you suggest, Counselor? We cannot simply return the colony and admit defeat. Actually, interjected a new voice from the chamber entrance. That's exactly what you're going to do. The council members turned as one to see a human female striding confidently into the chamber, dressed in a simple dark uniform bearing only a small insignia, the Earth crescent wrapped around a stylized olive branch. Ambassador Frost, Grath acknowledged with what passed for a Petrosian nod. The council was just discussing your transmission to Admiral Vex Thor. I figured as much, the ambassador replied, casually taking a seat at the council table without being invited, a breach of protocol that caused Phi Epsilon's antennae to twitch violently. You have no authority to enter these chambers uninvited, hissed Admiral Vex Thor, regaining some of his composure. Ambassador Frost smiled, though anyone familiar with human expressions would have noted it didn't reach her eyes. Funny thing about authority, Admiral. It only exists when everyone agrees it does, kind of like your claim to New Montana. She tossed a small device onto the center of the table, which projected a hologram of the disputed colony world. Let me be perfectly clear, she continued, her voice pleasant but with an unmistakable edge. New Montana has exactly 0 strategic value to your empire. It's a backwater planet with lousy mineral deposits and a slightly toxic atmosphere. But it happens to be where 50,000 human colonists have decided to build their homes, and more importantly, where they go fishing on weekends. The territory falls within the expansion zone granted to the Zolaxian Empire by this very council, protested Vex Thor. Paperwork mistake, Frost replied with a dismissive wave of her hand. Happens all the time in bureaucracies. Easy to fix. You cannot simply— Oh, but I can, Frost interrupted. Because here's what's going to happen if you don't return our colony and compensate the families of the 12 settlers your pacification force killed during the occupation. She tapped the device, and the hologram shifted to show a series of Zalaxian mining outposts near the border of human space. These facilities are currently under observation by what we call special forces. Very motivated individuals who excel at breaking things and creating general havoc. If we don't reach an agreement in the next 24 hours, these outposts will experience a series of unfortunate accidents. The Admiral's eye stalks quivered with rage. "You're threatening us with terrorism!" Frost's smile widened. "No, Admiral. I'm threatening you with consequences. The hegemony will never bow to such—" "The hegemony," Frost cut in again, "should probably know what they're dealing with before making dramatic proclamations." She tapped the device once more, and the hologram shifted to show Earth's solar system. "We humans have a peculiar trait, Admiral. We prepare for the worst. We hope for peace while designing for war. For the past 70 years, we've been building our defenses under the assumption that we'd eventually encounter hostile aliens." The hologram zoomed in to show what appeared to be unremarkable asteroids throughout the system. "These aren't just rocks," she explained. "They're automated weapons platforms, self-replicating, AI-controlled, and programmed with one simple directive. If Earth goes dark, unleash hell on whoever's responsible." Admiral Vexthor's tentacles coiled tightly. "You're bluffing." "Maybe," Frost conceded with a shrug. "But here's the thing about humans, Admiral. We're terrible gamblers, but we love to play games where the odds are stacked against us. It's a quirk of our psychology. And right now, you're betting that a species crazy enough to ride explosions into space, who turned a physics experiment into a planet-killing weapon within a decade of discovering atomic theory, and who will literally fight to the death over fishing rights, is bluffing." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Do you really want to make that bet?" The council chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Finally, Councillor Grath spoke. "I move that we reconsider the territorial boundaries near human space, effective immediately." "Seconded," said Zix quickly. Admiral Vexthor's eye stalks drooped in defeat. "The Zalaxian Empire will reconsider its claim to the world known as New Montana." Ambassador Frost stood, straightening her uniform. "Excellent. I'll expect confirmation of your withdrawal and the compensation packages for the affected families by this time tomorrow. Always a pleasure doing business with the hegemony." As she turned to leave, Admiral Vexthor couldn't contain himself. "This isn't over, human. The galaxy will remember this insult." Frost paused at the doorway and looked back over her shoulder. "You know what, Admiral? I hope they do. Because the galaxy should probably understand something about humans. We don't want your worlds. We don't need your resources. And we genuinely prefer to be left alone to fish, drink our beer, and explore the stars at our own pace. But if pushed—" Her smile turned predatory. "Well, we've spent thousands of years practicing the art of war on each other. Imagine what we could do if we actually united against an external threat." With that, she was gone, leaving the council in stunned silence. Lieutenant Krill approached the Admiral cautiously. "Sir, what are our orders regarding New Montana?" Admiral Vexthor stared at the space where the human had been standing. "Full withdrawal, immediately." "And the compensation packages?" "Approve them, double the amount." "And Lieutenant?" "Yes, Admiral. Begin compiling a comprehensive analysis of human territory. I want to ensure we never accidentally encroach on their space again." "Yes, sir. That seems wise." As the council members dispersed, Councillor Grath approached Admiral Vexthor. "If it's any consolation, Admiral, you're not the first to underestimate them. But let me offer a word of advice. Study them. Learn from them." "Learn? From primitives?" "Yes," Grath rumbled. "Because there's one more human trait you should understand. They bear grudges, but they also form surprisingly strong alliances, even with former enemies. In fact, they respect worthy adversaries. You suggest we could eventually ally with these barbarians?" "I suggest," Grath replied, "that being on the same side as humans in a fight is historically a much more comfortable position than being against them." 2 standard galactic weeks later, Admiral Vexthor found himself in the uncomfortable position of hosting Ambassador Frost on his flagship. The human appeared utterly unconcerned by being surrounded by beings who had, until recently, been planning her species' subjugation. "I appreciate the tour, Admiral," she said, sipping from a container of what his sensors identified as the toxic substance humans called coffee. "Your bioengineered ship systems are quite impressive." Vexthor's tentacles twisted in what he hoped conveyed formal politeness rather than lingering resentment. The Zalaxian Empire has perfected organic technology over millennia, Ambassador. Our vessels are grown, not built. Fascinating approach, she replied. We've experimented with similar concepts, but never quite cracked it at this scale. We tend to favor mechanical solutions, though our newer ships incorporate biological elements for certain systems. The Admiral paused, his curiosity momentarily overcoming his disdain. Your species has achieved partial biointegration? That's unexpected for your technological level. Frost smiled. Admiral, has it occurred to you that we might not be showing you everything we have? Humans tend to hold a few cards back, just in case. Cards? Never mind. Earth idiom. She gestured toward a viewport showing the stars. So, I understand your civilization has catalogued over 30,000 habitable worlds. 33,457 to be precise, Vexthor replied, a hint of pride creeping into his voice modulation. The hegemony controls nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Impressive, Frost acknowledged. Though I'm curious, how many of those worlds have indigenous sentient species? The Admiral's eye stalks stiffened slightly. 187 worlds host pre-spaceflight civilizations. They are under hegemony protection and observation. Protection, Frost repeated, taking another sip of her coffee. Like New Montana was? Vexthor's color shifted to deep purple, a sign of embarrassment. That was an unfortunate misunderstanding. Of course, she agreed, though her tone suggested otherwise. And these protected species, do they have representation in your hegemony? A voice in decisions that affect their worlds? They are not yet ready for such responsibility, Vexthor replied stiffly. When they achieve certain technological benchmarks, they will be considered for associate status. I see. And who decides these benchmarks? The Founding Council, naturally. Frost nodded thoughtfully. So the powerful decide when the less powerful deserve rights. Interesting system. Very efficient. Vexthor detected the criticism in her tone. Your species would approach this differently? Let's just say humanity has a complicated history with more technologically advanced civilizations deciding what's best for the less developed ones. It rarely ends well for anyone involved. Before the Admiral could respond, his communication implant chimed. Excuse me, Ambassador, I'm needed on the command deck. Of course, she replied. I'll just enjoy the view. When Vexthor returned several minutes later, he found the human standing exactly where he'd left her, staring out at the stars with an expression he couldn't interpret. Is everything all right, Admiral? She asked without turning. A minor security matter, he dismissed. Ambassador, I must confess I find your species perplexing. You threaten war over a single colony, yet now you speak of diplomatic concerns for species you've never even met. Frost turned to face him. That's because you're still thinking of us as a monolith, Admiral. Humans are contradictory by nature. We're capable of tremendous violence and surprising compassion, sometimes within the same individual, often within the same day. That seems inefficient from an evolutionary standpoint. And yet, here we are, she said with a slight smile. Perhaps what seems like contradiction to you is actually adaptation to us. We can be whatever we need to be to survive. Warriors when threatened, diplomats when possible, explorers when curious. Vexthor's tentacles shifted thoughtfully. The Counselor Grath suggested something similar. He believes your species could be a valuable ally. Do you agree, Admiral? His color shifted to a contemplative blue. I am beginning to see possibilities I had not considered before. Well, that's progress, Frost said. And speaking of progress, I have a proposal for you to consider. A proposal? She nodded. Earth is hosting a diplomatic conference next month. Representatives from several independent worlds beyond hegemony space will be attending. We'd like to extend an invitation to the hegemony as well. Vexthor's eye stalks stiffened in surprise. This is unexpected. Is it? You've spent centuries expanding outward. We've spent decades preparing for first contact scenarios. Now that we've both had our misunderstanding, perhaps it's time to establish clearer channels of communication. Her expression turned serious. Because let me be clear, Admiral. Humanity has no interest in galactic conquest or challenging hegemony territory. But we will defend what's ours, and we will form our own alliances with whoever shares our values. And what values might those be, Ambassador? Self-determination, mutual respect.